What's good, everybody? Doctor's back. We're gonna do some NBA today. Getting on a little earlier so we can have the content out, give people a chance, give myself a chance to adjust to news and all that kind of stuff. Really just kind of look at the breakdowns and really got my whole setup. So ready to rock and roll. Um, it's been fairly good ride. Obviously, there have been a couple of bumps here and there, but overall, again, the neighborhoods, it's what it is, right? It's no different than like playing poker, right? You got to get a bunch of chips so that way when a bad beat happens, you still have enough to be in the tournament and whatnot. So, uh, again, always go with your gut. You'll never regret that. But hopefully, we can offer some guidance and assistance and see what we can be looking at. So, and I'm going to try to go in and do some things live, so I'm going to make this a little more interactive. Spend some time. So again, focusing on DFS on FanDuel, making sure that the pricing, again, we treat this a lot like the stock market, at least I do, in terms of who's in play and who's not. And then we can look at what props to attack and really try to build a 50-50 or double up lineup from a betting perspective that you could pretty feel good about should double up depending on some of the odds. So I have that stuff in front of me, so we'll look at that. So again, I'm going to evolve this and hopefully by the end, beginning of next year, really have like a pretty good itinerary and kind of idea of how I want this to go. Really just to help me reflect back and see what I was thinking, why I was thinking, and if it made sense. Any feedback is appreciated. And be responsible and all that good stuff. And now that we got those PSAs out of the way, let's get to it. We're going to start with Detroit traveling to Charlotte. Detroit is fairly healthy. Obviously, Kate Cunningham's out for the year, so they're just going to look different for the rest of the year. Charlotte may get LaMelo Ball back today, so that's something you definitely want to pay attention to. I say that, but I'm going to tell you that if he is in, I really don't like anybody on Charlotte from a DFS perspective. The pricing is all there with the expectation that LaMelo's out. It hasn't kind of regressed back to where they kind of normally hang out. And I don't really like, I mean, maybe PJ Washington at 5.9K, but again, that's not something I'm chasing, or really, it's definitely not a priority. Sure, anybody could always go off, but I mean, this isn't something that I'm really looking to project or I feel that's probable. On the Detroit side, Duran, I think, or Duran. It's pronounced Duran, but I thought I heard somebody call him Duran. But he's been starting, and it still anticipates to start at center, and he's only 5K, and I feel like he has a ceiling that, and we just really, his point per minute production seems to be pretty solid. So I kind of like him in tournaments. Depending on how many people are in the tournament, you always got to pay attention to how many. The wider the audience, the more kind of variable your lineup has to be. So, just keep. I would definitely be somebody I'd be keep on my radar. But at 5K, this may be the price to get him at if he really, especially if he starts to score. It looks like a very solid rebounder. So. And then Bogdanovich is always in play. He's just very volatile. He can get you 7 fantasy points, or he can get you 42. So at 6.1K, that should tell you he has a very his floor is not as lower than you would like, but he does have a ceiling. Um, I don't know. Charlotte's tend to be a good matchup. Um, the total is decent, 229 and a half, but I don't know that I'm going to prioritize Bogdanovich. Duran would be the one play from this game that if I was only going to take one player, he's who I'm going to take. Um, Props wise or betting in this game, the only thing, I mean, again, I like to. I don't know how many did I get him at. I took Charlotte with a bunch of points. Let me see how many I was able to get him at. We'll see. Like it would have to be about 10 and a half would feel good about it. And again, keep in mind a lot of the 50-50, and this is going to evolve in this is going to be plays that individually you can't make because there's no, it's not worth it. But collectively, cumulatively, we build kind of our own kind of safe bet, and try to get as minimal legs in there to do that, but also make sure that it has a very high chance to hit. I don't really do a whole lot just based on Vegas odds. I try to create my own odds just to increase the probability of it hitting. So, um, Rozier 3 pointers, you can look at that. Didn't really look closely at him. That's really all I would be targeting in this game, and feel good about it. Next game, Golden State is going to Indiana. So we've got Klay Thompson's out, Wiggins is still out, and then Curry is questionable. Draymond should play. He's probable. So I guess there's a chance Curry could play if like Green wasn't playing. I figure they just sit all the big three out. There's a chance they do. I think he banged knees with Giannis yesterday, so we'll see how he feels. They'll probably. I mean, we get this. This game is at 7 Eastern, so we'll know before the lineups lock if he's playing. If he does play, obviously he's in play at 9.9K. If he doesn't play, clearly Jordan Poole is a must play. Now the fact that Klay isn't in, Jordan Poole's going to get a lot of run anyway, and he's probably a must play already as it is. But he's definitely, in play because if Steph doesn't play like 100%, just to kind of lock him in at 6.7K. I would also attack his props, like his assist props. Not only on the safe end, but you can, he has a high ceiling, right? Low fours, in terms of assists, he can get even maybe potentially the double digits if Curry is out, especially with a matchup against Indiana. Um, Anthony Lamb has been starting. He's only 3.8K, so he's somebody at small forward that you might want to look at. I haven't, as we go, we'll figure out where he ranks, but he's somebody you definitely at least want to kind of pay attention to at that price and with his minute production. He's just on the floor for at least half the game, so at 3,800, he's in play. Um, and then, like I said, depending on Steph, there's some more trickle down with like DiVincenzo. He did well yesterday. He's at 4.8K, so he's definitely somebody that if Curry doesn't play, should get some minutes and some run and could do well. That's really it for Golden State. Um, on the Indiana side, obviously Halliburton stunk up the joint yesterday or the other day, whatever day. I think he had like 1 point. Clearly, that's the outlier performance. So he's still a play at 9.4K. He has 50-point upside, so I would definitely be again. This is a matchup where he should just kind of be able to run the floor, dish the ball well. I think he only had 6 assists the other day. That's kind of his low. I look for him to get back on track with that unless he's just officially going to hit a rut, and we'll find out today. I don't expect that. Buddy Hield at 6.1K. Miami's a tough matchup. This is not as tough, so you can expect him to kind of get back up above that 30 fantasy point threshold. So at 6.1K, he offers you a ceiling. And then Miles Turner is definitely somebody you can be looking at today. Tournament, like it's volatile, with the floor ceiling, but his ceiling is massive. So at 7.7K, he's in play today. Um, I don't really look at anything else from Indiana. And again, I would typically look at if you're looking at like lottery ticket type plays, it's Buddy Hield threes, Halliburton assist. Those would be the areas that I'd be going after in this matchup. And obviously, I'm going to, I think for sure in my 50-50, Indiana plus, I was starting to build one big one, so I don't know. I'm going to do elimination. But Indiana plus 11.5 will probably be built into that. I think getting a home team like Indiana with some points makes some sense. Golden State is still has firepower, and without knowing for sure if Curry's playing, I'm not going to lock that in yet. I need that news to really feel good about going one way or the other. Um, that's really all I have for this game. Next, we have Atlanta going to Orlando. And I just like targeting players against Orlando. They just tend to give up stuff. Now they're tougher out in Orlando, so we'll talk more about that when we get into the wins and loss portion of this. Injury wise, Atlanta, Trae Young is questionable. Dejounte Murray and Collins are still out, so obviously this is big for them. They played without Young the other day, and there was a whole bunch of value that opened up. So we'll see if a Kush matchup with Orlando inspires him to get back in the lineup. But let's just presume that he doesn't play. Then you're going back to and Bogdanovich was out. Now he's back, so he definitely is somebody that becomes a play probably either way, but definitely if Trae Young is out. But even with Trae Young in, I still like Bogdanovich at 6K on FanDuel. If Young plays at 10K, he's definitely somebody that offers a ceiling. Not prioritizing it. AJ Griffin, if Trae Young doesn't play at 4.8K, is definitely in play. That's who I'm looking to pick up a lot of the scoring slack. Trent Forrest is not somebody that for his fantasy points per minute are not where I need him to be, so I'm not playing him. And then DeAndre Hunter's at a price where that's about where he should be, so I don't expect that there's much of a ceiling there. Capella does have a ceiling, but I don't like it when like the lobs and stuff like that aren't in play, which tend to happen when Trey Young and Murray are in the game. So if Young doesn't play, I don't like Capella as much. If he does play, then I do like Capella a little bit. But Bogdanovich is the player to really pay attention to it for Atlanta. Either whether or not Trey Young plays, but if Trey Young doesn't play, then it's Bogdanovich and Griffin that I would be looking at to put in my DFS lineups. If some reason Capella doesn't play, he didn't play last game, then Okongwu at 5K is okay, but I wouldn't be running to play him. Um, there's not a lot of upside there for me. Orlando, injuries. We have Wendell Carter still out, Harris, Suggs, Okiki, the usual suspects from recent Orlando lineups. So um, I kind of like a lot of these prices and plays, to be honest with you. Um, Bankero offers a ceiling. He's at 7.8K. I wouldn't hesitate to put him in a lineup. Franz Wagner, he slipped down to 5.9K, and we really should have jumped on that price because he definitely is, a 40-point upside guy. I think the day he was 5.9K and he got a 48. That's huge. We want to give him. In fact, I think he only missed like 3 shots. He was 10 for 11 from twos. He had 5 boards, he had a couple steals. So, this was a matchup at home against Toronto. So he tends to play better at home. So I'd really look at Franz Wagner. His brother is priced up to like 5.6K. So he's not as attractive as when he was 3,900, but he's definitely somebody still. He's going to be on the floor for extended minutes that he could produce at a decent rate. And then Bol is still an option. He's been kind of down the last couple of games, but he's definitely cracked 40 fantasy points, so it's 6.4. And I think this is a matchup, especially if like Capella doesn't play, where you could see him being dominant, and with blocks, and he's a ball handler. He can hoop. So um, I don't like Bowl as much when Bankero plays because Bankero to me is the dominant force, but he's definitely still somebody that you can put in your tournament lineups. And then Cole Anthony at 5.9K. Now they have him coming off the bench, but he's still probably going to get 28 to 30 minutes, and he can exceed a fantasy point per minute. So, getting 30 plus fantasy points isn't out of the realm of possibility because they start Markel Fultz at point guard, but he seems to be somewhat still on his minutes limit. So it really caps his upside. Um, you know, so I don't love him because he's just not going to be on the court enough to really get you the bang for your buck that you would want, especially on a big slate like today. So not really as enthused with Markel Fultz, but I do like Bankero. I love Franz Wagner uh, in this matchup, and then those are, from a props perspective, betting, looking at Franz Wagner maybe to get a 3-pointer at home, and Bankero to score. I like him to score a lot today, so I'd be looking at those. All right, next we have the Knicks at Chicago. So this is the first time I'm really going through this. This is so it looks like on the New York side, Jalen Brunson is questionable. That's obviously news um, for their backcourt because if he doesn't play, then you're getting down to like Emmanuel quickly. Even Derrick Rose becomes viable potentially at that point. So there's another piece of news to keep your eye on. On the Chicago side, Caruso looks like he's going to play. Dosunmu's not going to play. So and then everything else is normal. Lonzo Ball's been out since 1906. So um, on the Knicks, when you look at their pricing for DFS, they seem to be a little elevated. Barrett's back up above 7K. Randall's back up above 8K. Mitchell Robinson is always a tournament play. Just always keep that in mind. I don't really do like the never bet ons. That's there's no such thing, right? Anything that's an opportunity is an opportunity. You can't just drag the past with you. But I would say learn from your mistakes. And there are certain people at certain prices from a DFS perspective that are either buy or sell, and that's how I look at it. So when Mitchell Robinson's under 6K, he definitely has a 40 to 50 plus upside ceiling. So in those larger field tournaments. He doesn't tend to get a lot of ownership. I really like to go there. And again, it's boom or bust. He'll get you a 9 or he'll get you a 49. So if he's blocking shots and getting rebounds, A, they'll be tough to beat, and then B, like his fantasy score should be pretty good. Randall's always in play. Um, I don't, in this matchup against the Bulls, it's not something that I think he's going to go ballistic. Barrett's a little expensive for my. All the other guys are just expensive for me. Um, you could, like I said, throw darts at people like Hartenstein off the bench, but again, this is nothing I'm prioritizing. The key thing here is to pay attention is if Jalen Brunson is playing, then there's really nothing here to be excited about. Maybe, like I said, Mitchell Robinson in a tournament. If he doesn't play, then you look at somebody like Emmanuel Quickly. Um, I'm not a big Quentin Grimes guy in terms of fantasy production. I don't know that there's a ceiling or who'd be allowed to reach it. I just like, honestly, if Brunson doesn't play, then I love Randall because then Randall will be doing more. He'll be facilitating. He'll take a lot of the pressure and some of the ball handling in their half court offense. So if Brunson doesn't play, you should play Randall in DFS and tackle his props. That's the way I would handle the Knicks today. Bulls are favored in this matchup. Levine is still underpriced for what his potential is at 7,300, so he's definitely in play as guard forward eligibility. Caruso, it's funny, he doesn't really look to score, but he does everything else. So he even is even at 4,600, especially if he's getting steals and blocks, he's somebody that he could be interesting in a big tournament. And in DeRozan, he's not been the DeRozan of last year, so 8.4K. Although he did have 60 fantasy points in his last game, so he still can get it up there. So you definitely always kind of can throw a dart with him, but he's not somebody I'm really prioritizing today against the Knicks. Um, and like I said, Zach LaVine 3 pointers, his overall scoring total, and then sometimes you obviously I'm a Vucevic guy, and he's just his ceiling is not there a lot, and I think it's somewhat I don't say matchup dependent, but certain matchups like when he plays like or obviously Orlando, his old team, or Washington, those are matchups, and depending on his price, 7.9K is right about where he's probably should be. When he's under that, I really like him more. When he's here or higher, I don't really prioritize him. So next game, Sacramento at Toronto. We've got Herder questionable for Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox came back. They got their ass kicked in Philly yesterday, so now they got to go to Toronto. It doesn't get much better. So, um, obviously to me that should lead to Toronto being, I think they are favored in this matchup, and I think rightfully so. And it may not be. It may be another long night for Sacramento if they don't play any D like they did. If they play D like they did yesterday, forget about it. So from a DFS perspective, I really am not targeting anybody. Maybe a dart or two at Sabonis at 8.8K, but I don't really love anything else from Sacramento. If Herder doesn't play, maybe Davion Mitchell gets more run. Malik Monk would definitely kind of be a little interesting there at 5K. So that would be somebody I would really be looking in a tournament that I don't think a lot of people would play. Somebody like Malik Monk, especially if Herder doesn't play. There's just more shots and usage to go around. Toronto, I like Van Fleet at 7.8K. That's a price that he's a buy at. And this matchup doesn't hurt. So, yes, he does tend to have a little Jekyll and Hyde in him, but he does have some upside. And this is a price at home where he, to me, is a buy. The rest of the guys, are priced where they should be to me. Barnes maybe offers a little ceiling since he's at 7.1K, but that's about where he should be. They don't have OG, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, OG Anunoby's out. So there's a little bit more front court usage and opportunity there. So maybe Barnes gets some of that. Siakam's already 10.4K. I'm not going to pay more than I'm not paying 10.5 for Siakam. I'd rather just go get somebody else that has much more consistently, in that upper echelon of production. So props wise, again, Van Fleet, look at his threes and see if he can get some assists in there. Um, that's where I would be looking at for this game. Next game we've got. Just make sure we don't have any new news. Portland at San Antonio. Um, Injuries on the Portland side. Let's see. Josh Hart looks like he's supposed to play, and Eubanks looks good. So they're probable to play. So they're pretty much at full strength. They're as healthy as they've probably been all year. Um, so they're favored in this game. San Antonio, injury wise, they've got a couple guys out. Pirtle's still out. Romeo Langford and Zach Collins is out. That's huge on their front court because he was filling in for Pirtle, and he was doing a nice job. So a lot has opened up. So when you look at, well, let's start with Portland first since they're a traveling team. Lillard is 9.7K. It's not a price I love. He really hasn't demonstrated like to me. Although he had a big game in Denver last week, but I don't know that I'm betting on him to get over 50 fantasy points today. It could happen, So it's definitely he's still Damian Lillard. He's just a I think he's on the downside of his career. So I don't know that this is a price where when he's like at 9K, or less, I really love him. 9.7 is a little much on a slate like today, so I'm not really prioritizing that. The rest of the guys are priced to me where they should be, so they don't really offer a lot of upside. Um, Nurkic at 7.3K isn't typically, there's a little bit of a ceiling there, so there's a little room. He's been as low as, I've seen him at like 60. I want to say he was definitely at 6,800. He was as low as 65 at some points, even 6,100 this season. So, but he's still worth 7.3 and maybe a little above 7.6 is probably like my limit with him. So there's a little room there with him. And then the rest of it's pretty spread out. They have a pretty, now that they're healthy, I don't really, some of these guys are still priced up a little bit. So I don't really love anything else from this. Simons, at 7.7K, his price as it should be is coming down. But I still think he has easily, that's not a buy price when Lillard's in a lineup. I still would attack his 3 point props along with Lillard's and then Lillard's assist. Um, that's where I would be looking at. Sometimes I look at this sometimes and I saw a post where it's talking about, come on, Jeremy Grant, I need another three. And it's just like, there's certain things I'm just not comfortable with, right? Going after Jeremy Grant 3 point props, it's just not as, to me, just not profitable. It could happen. And you can say that for anybody, but, I just tend to kind of try to shift focus to places, bet on money. Jeremy Grant in threes to me isn't money. It's volatile. It's just one of those things I think about. There's certain players in certain arenas, right? It's kind of like saying, I need one more rebound from, Steph Curry or something like he can get rebounds, but I'm not, if you said one more three from Steph Curry, that makes sense, right? That's where probabilities to me come in. Anything can happen in any day. And if you have a feeling about something, I would go with it. But generally, it's like go with what the player's strength is because that's where they're probably going to lean to when they need to, when they're playing. So they're going to go to their strengths. San Antonio side, um, with Collins not in, I'm interested to see if they start this Bassey dude, Charles Bassey, or Kate. Like the Keita Bates Diop thing is a thing. Like I don't love Bassey as much, but the Bates Diop, well, even if he doesn't start, he has a ceiling. A lot of if you look at some of the like, I want to say, I guess if he was cheaper, I've seen a 30. Let's see, a 32 fantasy point day. He played 30 minutes of the game. 30. Yeah, see, when he gets 30 minutes, when he projects that, at 4.2K on FanDuel, that's just something to pay attention to. Keldon Johnson should be back. He's their primary scorer along with Devin Vassell. Vassell's in play at, this is a price where he's like right at the cusp of buying. So I look at that. Trey Jones too expensive for me. This is not, the rest of these guys are not at prices where you can buy. You could do Johnson or Vassell, but I really want to asterisk this Bates Diop. If he is starting, especially, but even just looking at it with Collins out, he's probably going to get minutes. Or Jeremy Sochan probably gets back on the starting lineup. To be honest with you, so maybe it's not as much a dots because if they put Bassey at center, then it's going to be they'll probably play Sochan at small forward, and I don't like him either. So nothing really to get excited about here at San Antonio. Spending way too much time talking about San Antonio. Let's move on. Um, Cleveland is going to Dallas. This should be an interesting matchup. I think Donovan Mitchell should be back. So they're fairly at full strength in Cleveland. Dallas, Maxi Kleber's out. Josh Green, I think that's a big deal. So they're back to the normal starting lineup, and Cleveland should be back to theirs. So when you look at the pricing, Garland's price has come down a little bit to 8.1K. That's typically a buy price for him. I don't love the matchup though in Dallas. I like his. He tends to have like a comfort in performing in Cleveland. That's what I noticed. Donovan Mitchell's at 9.1K. So, in his first, I think he missed, I want to say 3 games. And then he came, no, he missed 2 and then came back. And he played 36 minutes in his return. So, he's definitely out there and can do it. This is a match where I think he can do well. But again, I'm not prioritizing any of that. Jared Allen at 7K is in play. Um, so I would definitely be looking at him. Now I'm off Karis LeVert now that he's not starting anymore. He's too expensive, so I wouldn't play him. On the Mavericks, Luca's at 12.5K, but I could never get mad at anybody. I'm probably not going to play him today. Because he needs, a 70 to really get me excited, and it's just not. Again, for a guy like him, it's crazy. He can get it, and again, it's not like Darius Garland's going to be stopping him. So, again, can't talk anybody off Luca. I don't know that I'm going to be allocating that much of my salary to him today. I think that there's some other good plays as we're going through this that could probably just um, excite me enough to make my lineup well rounded. Um, and really, with Dallas, you don't really like anything else. Typically there's one other guy that'll step up and probably exceed their value, and you can never pinpoint who it is with them. One day it's Tim Hardaway, then it's Dinwiddie, Christian Wood. You know, there'll be the occasional DFS game. I guess DFS at his price is the only thing that's come down to 4.5K. So, but again, nothing I'm prioritizing with Dallas. Washington at Denver. Hmm. Now Washington is still going to be without Beal, Hashimura, and now Porzingis is out. That's huge. So Denver should really win this game. So anybody looking, when you think about who to bet on today, the Nuggets should win, right? Toronto should win. Um, if Trey Young doesn't play, believe it or not, Orlando should win, right? If Steph Curry doesn't play, Indiana should win, but that one's a little more. That's one is not as like a sure thing, right? And you gotta like Charlotte to win. But those other ones that I mentioned are really like should be like slam dunks. The Denver should be like a slam dunk play today to win. So when you're looking at Denver, they're pretty healthy except for Michael Porter Jr. So talk about Washington. Monty Morris back in the lineup today. So that helps them from a just getting the offense in order. But it's really the Kyle Kuzma show. The one play that you're going to love from this game, if they let it happen, is Daniel Gafford. If he plays over 20 minutes, I'm telling you, he's going to kill 4.6K price tag. Now, the bad part of this is that a matchup with Joker doesn't excite you, right? There's always foul trouble and things like that that could come into play. But he's a guy that can produce at a really crazy rate, like his points per minute. So if this were a different matchup, I would just like pencil it in, or pen it in. But he's definitely just pay attention to it. Like it's volatile, but he definitely has a ceiling. Kuzma 8.3K. Again, don't love the matchup, but you could play him because it's clearly he's going to chuck today. He should take 25 shots. Blowout risk is definitely in play in this game, so I don't really love anything else from these guys. Will Barton, this is his old team, so with Porzingis not in, there is more shots and usage to go around. So he could be sneaky at 4.9K. Again, he used to play for Denver. I think this is his first time back too. So he would be somebody that I would definitely kind of keep an eye on as somebody, if you're looking for somebody cheap as the last guy into a lineup, especially if you're playing more than one lineup. He could be, you want to get some shares of him, just that whole, I won't say revenge narrative, but again, guys get up for those games, right? I've been there myself as a player. There's certain things you'll remember, and you'll want to perform well. So maybe he has family there, who knows? On the Denver side, again, it's Jokic. He always in play, 11.8K. Again, if they blow them out, it's probably because he got a massive triple double. So I would play him. I don't really love anything else from them. I think everyone else is priced where they are, and just based on the matchup. Bruce Brown has been playing well. Jamal Murray's up to 7.2K. So, um, yeah, I think it's just more of the things where they spread it out. I don't think anybody is that concentrated on this team except for Jokic. So, it's the only guy I'm going to really play there. You know what? I skipped the game. The Miami Heat game. Miami at OKC. Looks like Miami's going to be missing Jimmy Butler. You already know how I feel about that. If Jimmy's not playing, they're very beatable and sketchy. They're gritty at the same time. That's what's really irritates you about them, right? But in terms of like betting on them to win or anything, it gets really dicey, especially on the road. Now OKC is no juggernaut, so OKC is missing Robinson, Earl, and Williams. Kendrick Williams has been out for a while, but everyone else is in play. So on the Miami side, looking at the pricing, Caleb Martin at 5K is okay. I can do that. And again, I think Oladipo at 4K, he's starting to get an uptick when you look at his last, I want to say 3 or 4 games. Let me just pull it up real quick. You know, 18, 21, 23, and 18 in terms of minutes. And one of those games he fouled off with, he was hacking. But his production is starting to kind of get to a point. He's a guy who, and maybe in a day like today where Jimmy doesn't play a lot, they leave him out there for a little bit. He's very delicate, so I'm not gonna do any cartwheels, putting him in bets or anything like that. But I definitely would take a flyer on him in a tournament to see if this is a day where maybe they let him get above. Like see 20, like if he played 23 minutes today or more, I would like him. But that's just especially if he got to like 26 or 27, I would really like him. But it's tough. But Lowry is out for me. Hero, I guess, at 7.7's in play. Bam is up to 9K, but he does tend to step up when Jimmy's not in there, so you can look at him. They're just kind of I don't really know. It's volatile. I'm not prioritizing it. Shea Gilgis is at 10.6K. That's crazy, right? But again, this is a matchup. Miami's a little tougher, but they're tougher when Jimmy's in the building. So um, he's in play. I really don't trust any of these other guys, so I really don't touch a lot of OKC players. To be honest with you, they're at prices to me that are not at buy, and they're players that are by design to me aren't. Maybe Josh Giddey, but at 7.4K, I'll pick my battles on another day. Um, that's really all for this game. We got to build a 50-50. So let me just really quick. Last game, Minnesota at the Clippers. Injury wise, let's take a look here. We got looks like D'Angelo Russell is questionable. So that's an interesting one. That's definitely one to pay attention to because then you get somebody like Jalen Noel in there projecting for more minutes, and that's exciting at 5.3K. Edwards is too expensive for me. Gobert's back up to 8K. I've been playing Kyle Anderson, and his price continues to go up because he's been producing. So he's starting to get to that like sell price. He's not a buy. This is probably like in a last guy in, and couldn't find anybody better in this price range. I wouldn't cry if he ended up in my lineup, but I'm probably not going to push that button. So watch Jalen Noel here if Russell doesn't play. And on the Clipper side, Norman Powell's still out, and then John Wall is on his regular vacation. So again, Paul George show, 8.9K, love that price. He's definitely in play. And then they bumped Kawhi. It's funny that Kawhi's price has gone up because he had this one game against Boston. So I'm not getting too crazy. But again, at 7K, let's say, for example, if he got 30 minutes again, but I mean, he was so efficient. He was 8 out of 9, 2 out of 3. I mean, that's the kind of player he is. He had 25, 9, and 6. I would take the unders on if he gets that today. But if he does get the minutes, then he's definitely, I mean, Minnesota doesn't play any D. So, um, wouldn't be completely crazy for him to exceed 35 fantasy points. So let's look at things that we really feel good about today. So I think that Denver winning is definitely a thing. We talked about maybe getting Indiana with some points. And then you could always look at maybe like Zach Levine's scoring. If I don't want to get too high, but if he's in that 15, 14 to 17, somewhere in there. You know what? Let me look at it and I'll build it and I'll post it. So that's what we'll do. But that's kind of the breakdown. I'm just trying to like figure out how I would really want to do this and get it out early enough. So um, let's do one last quick look for any updates. We're about an hour and a half from lock, so stuff's going to start kind of popping in. So just look out for that. But let me get working on this 50-50 and I'll post it. Peace.